Hello. So today I will be going over the Book of Giants. We'll be reading from the introduction, and I will try to get through this as much as I can. There's the Aramaic version of the Book of Giants, and there's a couple other versions, but I'm not going to read all of them. Okay. The discovery of the first Dead Sea Scrolls in a remote Judean desert cave in 1947 is considered one of the greatest archaeological events of the 20th century. East of the city of Jerusalem, the mountainous landscape plummets 1,200 meters to the lowest point on Earth. This is the Dead Sea. Many biblical stories are set in the caves and hills of the region. Here, King David fled from King Saul and hid in the desert's mountain caves. Here, Jesus struggled with the devil, resisting temptation. Here, the community of Qumran hid their most valuable treasures, scrolls of ancient wisdom and religious insight. For thousands of years, the Judean desert held secrets buried by the Jews of Qumran, a group most scholars refer to as the Qumran community. Much of this community was made up of the Essenes. This strict sect of Judaism used the caves to promote their literary treasures, which were scrolls hidden in sealed jars, placed deep within the caves, perched high in the area of the Dead Sea. These scrolls and their secrets were revealed by a young Bedouin shepherd one day in 1947. Or Bedouin, however you say it. Prompted by the loss of one of his sheep, a shepherd of the Ta'amare tribe left his flock to search for the stray. While searching, he found an opening in the steep hillside. Curious as many young men are, he tossed a stone in the cave. Now, this is very interesting, and I saw this earlier when I was reading on TikTok, but very interesting, and I saw this earlier when I was reading on TikTok, but Ta'amare tribe left his flock to search for the stray. And he was a shepherd. So that's kind of, like the story of Jesus going off from his sheep to go find the stray. That's very interesting. Curious as many young men are, he tossed a stone into the cave. The rock answered with the sounds of pots breaking, and he was compelled to investigate. He had stumbled on the greatest find of the century, the Dead Sea Scrolls. In the caves were a number of pots. The majority of the pots were empty, begging the question, had vandals and thieves been there first, stealing much of the precious treasure? Some of the jars were still intact, with lids sealed in place. He opened the seals to reveal the ancient scrolls. They were wrapped in linen and blackened with age. No rubies, no diamond, no gold. Just a bunch of old scrolls turning to dust before his eyes. He was not impressed. Wondering if he could trade them for anything of value, he and several companions brought the scrolls to Kondo, a Bethlehem antiquities dealer, for appraisal. Kondo seemed to recognize the age and value of the find, so he sent the Bedouins back to the cave in search for more treasures. They returned with a total of 7 scrolls. The boys had no idea of the value of their find, and so the Bedouins sold 4 of the 7 scrolls to Kondo and 3 to a second antiquities dealer named Salahi. Kondo in turn resold the 4 scrolls to Archbishop Samuel, head of the Syrian Orthodox monastery of St. Mark in Jerusalem. Soon after the announcement of the find, Bedouin treasure hunters and archaeologists descended on the site and the surrounding caves. Ultimately, they would find hundreds of ancient scrolls and fragments, including the oldest existing copies of the Hebrew Bible. The scrolls ranged in dates from the 3rd century BCE, mid-Second Temple period, to the 1st century of the Common Era before the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE. The scrolls provide an unprecedented picture of the diverse religious beliefs of ancient Judaism and of daily life during the Second Temple period when Jesus lived and preached. While Hebrew is the most frequently used language in the scrolls, about 15% were written in Aramaic and several in Greek. The scrolls materials are made up mainly of parchment, although some are papyrus and the text of one scroll is engraved on copper. A quarter of these non-biblical manuscripts are sectarian and reflect the life and philosophy of a specific community. These core texts consist of eschatological biblical commentaries, apocalyptic texts, liturgical works, and regulations or rules that govern community life. In the early days of scrolls research, scholars attributed all of the Qumran scrolls to the Essene community. In recent years, however, this consensus has been challenged and modified, though many scholars still maintain a link between the Essenes and the Dead Sea Scrolls. In that time, the Essenes were one of the 3 basic sects of Judaism. Jewish sects described in ancient sources were the Pharisee, the Sadducee, and the Essene sect. It is thought the majority of the scrolls were written and hidden by the Essenes. One of the many discoveries from the caves of Qumran is a scroll given the name the Book of Giants. It is thought to have been based on the Book of Enoch, a pseudepigraphical Jewish work from the 3rd century BCE, which were based on Genesis 6, 1 through 4. The Book of Giants, like the Book of Enoch, concerns itself with the Nephilim, which in the Enoch version are the offsprings of fallen angels who are called the Watchers. The angels saw the beauty of the daughters of men. They broke their allegiance to heaven, descended to earth, and married the women, and thus fathered giants. The book attempts to fill in the details about the giants and their offspring that the Book of Enoch is lacking. Indeed, there has been a theory put forth that the Book of Giants was actually part of the Book of Enoch at one time. The text relates how some giants named Oya, Haya, and Mawe, sons of the fallen angels, were compelled to dream. In these dreams, they foresaw the biblical deluge and their own demise. There is dialogue concerning the futility of fighting God or his angels, even though they could conquer any human alive. Seeing their common fate, they seek to enlist the help of Enoch. The mention of Enoch in the storyline referencing the patriarch places the Book of Giants firmly in the list of Enochian texts, along with 1st Enoch, 2nd Enoch, and 3rd Enoch, also known as the Ethiopic Book of Enoch, the Slavonic Secrets of Enoch, and the Hebrew Book of Enoch, respectively. In the Qumran version of the Book of Giants, there is a brief mention of one of the giants, Oya, whose name is found in the Babylonian Talmud, Nida chapter 9. There it is said Sihon and Og, mentioned in the Book of Numbers, were brothers, as they were the sons of Oya, the son of Samhazai, one of the leaders of the fallen angels in the Book of Enoch. Samhazai is the same as Semyaza, also Semyaza, Semyaza, Semhaza, Semyaza, and Shemhazai. He is a fallen angel of apocryphal Jewish and Christian tradition, ranked in the heavenly hierarchy as one of the Grigori, means watchers in Greek. The name Shemyaza means infamous rebellion. The combination of Shem, meaning name or fame, whether positive or negative, and Azaz, which means rebellion or arrogance as a negative particle. This name occurs in Enochian literature. We meet the Grigori in several books, some of which are considered apocryphal and some pseudo-pigraphical. Pigrapha. Texts written by someone unknown but attributed to authors of prominence such as 2nd Enoch. In the book of Enoch 2 we read. Okay, so this is where it goes into part of the book. Chapter 18. The men took me on to the fifth heaven and placed me, and there I saw many and countless soldiers called Grigori, of human appearance, and their size was greater than that of great giants, and their faces withered, and the silence of their mouth perpetual. And there was no service on the fifth heaven. And I said to the men who were with me, see Enoch 2, 1-7, 1-7. The Greek transliteration egregori is the source for the term Grigori. The egregori are the watchers, a group of fallen angels who mated with mortal women and produced the Nephilim mentioned in the book of Jubilees, 1st Enoch, and Genesis 6:4. Why are they so very withered, and their faces melancholy, and their mouths silent? And why is there no service in this heaven? And they said to me, These are the Grigori, who with their prince Setanel, or Satan, rejected the Lord of Light. Setanel is a name that you don't hear very often. After them are those who are held in great darkness in the second heaven. And 3 of them went down onto earth from the Lord's throne to the place Hermon, Mount Hermon, and broke through their vows on the shoulder of the hill Hermon, and saw the daughters of men how good they are, and took to themselves wives, and fouled the earth with their deeds, who broke the law and mixed with the women. Giants are born, and amazingly large men with great hatred. Note, the hill of Hermon could be Mount Hermon, which is mentioned over a dozen times in the Bible. 4. And therefore God judged with them great judgment, and they weep for their brethren, and they will be punished on the Lord's great day. And I said to the Grigori, I saw your brethren in their works and their great torments, and I prayed for them, but the Lord has condemned them to be under earth until this heaven and this earth shall end forever. Okay, so what I want to explain to you, being under earth basically means they were in hell. Now, the central core of the earth is a star. The second core of the earth is lava, is fire. So that's probably hell, I would think, under earth. Okay, until this heaven and earth shall end forever. Now I'm going to read Revelation chapter 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. So this is also talking about, and it says right here, this heaven, this earth shall end forever. So in Revelation chapter 21 says this heaven and this earth will pass away. And it says this heaven and this earth shall end forever. So both basically the same thing. But basically what it's saying is that this new heaven and this earth is going to come down and settle over this earth. And this earth is going to disappear. Unless there is a bridge or a ship, then I'm presuming that we will go in spirit to this new heaven and this new earth. We will be transformed into new beings, which will be the concept of reincarnation. Reincarnated onto another planet with the new heaven and earth. But I don't think it's Mars, Elon Musk. I don't think it's Mars, because Mars is in a straight line from Earth. And this is going to settle over where Earth is. So I don't think it's the same thing. It sounds more like an alignment of a certain planet like Nibiru or Planet X that will line up with the Earth at some point in time. That's what it sounds like more to me. And I said, why do you stand there, brethren, and do not serve before the Lord's face, and have not put your services before the Lord's face? You could anger your Lord completely. And they listened to my advice and spoke to the four ranks in heaven. As I stood with those two men, 4 trumpets sounded together with a loud voice, and the Gregorian broke into song with one voice, and their voice went up before the Lord pitifully and touchingly. So these beings did have some kind of remorse. They knew that they were in trouble. They knew that. A central theme in the Book of Giants is the fact that the giants were the offspring of the Watchers and human women. So they did have some to them. They were hybrids, but they had some humanity to them. This theme has varied somewhat between various copies of the Book of Giants. As it turns out, there are several versions of the Book of Giants. One version of the Book of Giants was spread by the Manichaean religion. The book became widely read and now exists in Syriac, Greek, Persian, Sogdian, Uyghur, and Arabic. Each version is somewhat different from that of the Qumran text, incorporating in each version local myths and legends and the various beliefs of the religions which had adapted the story for their own purpose. Mani, the founder of the Manichaean religion, needed to alter the story in order to fit it into his system. He taught a dualistic system of good and evil. The heavenly origin of the sons of God of Genesis, the Book of Giants, or the Book of Enoch, did not fit into Mani's conviction that evil could not come from good. Thus, the angels who were called the sons of God were presented as demons and evil entities. This kept the separation between good and evil taught in his religion. Very interesting. That is extremely interesting. About that. Manichaeism taught a dualistic cosmology describing the struggle between a good spiritual world of light and an evil material world of darkness. Kind of like the Gnostics, yeah? These forces were distinct, separate, and always at odds. The forces of good and evil are at war. They battle throughout human history. The world becomes darker as light is gradually removed from the world of matter and returns to its place of origin, the world of light. Mani's beliefs were based on Mesopotamian Gnosticism and other religious movements. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually. There are numerous similarities between Mani's Book of Giants and the stories of the giants related in the Enoch literature and the Book of Jubilees. Both Enoch and Jubilees are part of the Ethiopic Christian canon. Manny's borrowed liberally from earlier Jewish traditions in his religious movement, adapted them as need. We're supposed to be adapting them as needed. This idea was upheld by the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947. J.T. Malik discovered roughly 6 to 10 extremely poorly preserved manuscripts of an Aramaic Book of Giants, apparently the document used by Mani as the basis for his scriptural work. Their dates fall roughly across the 1st century BCE, so presumably the book was composed before this, although how long before remains open to question. The Aramaic version found at Qumran also describes the Sumerian hero Gilgamesh and the monster Humbaba. The Qumran text was in such poor condition and so fragmented that clear reconstruction was impossible. Pieces of the text are missing and at times so difficult to reconstruct that the order of certain fragments are unclear, thus the order of certain verses in the text are best guess. Scholars have pored over the small fragments, comparing them to other versions in an attempt to determine the proper flow. However, versions vary so widely that there are places, for example, in the Manichaean version, they have no analog to the Aramaic version. Even with part of the text missing, the Book of Giants gives us information on how the ancients thought about fallen angels, the Watchers, the Nephilim, and the patriarch Enoch. Certainly, the Book of Giants can be used to augment and expand on the story given to us in the Book of Enoch. The Aramaic Book of Giants draws on ancient Near Eastern myths, and the Manichaean version draws on Iranian myths. Two of the evil giants in the Aramaic version are named Gilgamesh and Hobabus. Gilgamesh is an epic figure in Sumerian and Akkadian literature, best known for the Epic of Gilgamesh, a work whose importance in ancient Mesopotamia was comparable to that of the Homeric epics in ancient Greece. Gilgamesh was said to be the king of Uruk. Uruk was an ancient city of Sumer and later Babylonia, situated east of the present bed of the Euphrates River, some 30 kilometers east of modern As-Samawa, Al-Mutahana, in modern-day Iraq. It is thought Gilgamesh lived sometime between 2800 and 2500 BC. The latest and most comprehensive telling of the Gilgamesh legend was the 12-tablet standard Babylonian version compiled circa 1200 BC by the priest Sinleki Anunini. If one follows the map that follows, it is easy to see. If one views the map that follows, it is easy to see how an ancient poem of the king of Sumer could have influenced the region of Mani, a Babylonian since Babylonia's modern-day Iraq. Likewise, it is easy to see how the ancient name of Gilgamesh and the legends of his great strength recounted in the epic could have been used in a text found along the Dead Sea, since Iraq is in the region. Indeed, the path of transmission followed the area of agriculture in ancient times. According to the epic, Gilgamesh, a mortal demigod, meets Utnapishtim, the Babylonian version of Noah, and the only man to survive the flood. Utnapishtim was made immortal by the gods. In the Manichaean version, the giant Hobabus, who is also called Humbaba, takes someone's wife. The giants fall out among themselves and begin killing one another as well as other creatures. The giants, Gilgamesh and Hobabus of the Book of Giants, appear to be the same as Gilgamesh and Humbaba, Hawawa, of the Gilgamesh epic. In another version, Atunbush is mentioned and seems to be the same as Utnapishtim, the immortal. Since there are lost passages in the Aramaic Book of Giants, he may have been an appearance there also. Have made an appearance. Malik has translated and published an edition of some of the Aramaic fragments of the Book of Giants, which tells of the angels Semyaza and Azael, making a bet with God that if they were to descend from heaven to earth, they would be able to resist the urge to sin. However, soon they could not restrain themselves from becoming sexually involved with the women they found to be so beautiful. As this kind of relationship tends to loosen the jaws of men and angels, they found themselves revealing secrets reserved for heavenly beings and restricted from humankind. Semyaza begets son named Haya and Ahiah. Haya and Ahiah each have dreams foretelling their destruction. The angel Metatron, another name for the deified Enoch after his ascension to heaven, sends them a warning of the coming flood. Both dreams predict the coming of the flood and the destruction of all human beings except Noah and his 3 sons. The giants who are the sons of the angels are killed in the flood. Semyaza repents and suspends himself upside down between heaven and the earth. Azael refuses to repent and becomes a demon who entices men to corrupt deeds and who bears the sins of Israel on the Day of Atonement. Azael refuses to repent and becomes a demon who entices men to corrupt deeds and who bears the sins of Israel on the Day of Atonement. Leviticus 16:7-10. I'm going to highlight that because that's really interesting to me. Who bears the sins of Israel on the Day of Atonement. Who does that sound like? That sounds like someone familiar. Like Jesus. But Jesus bore the sins of Israel. Very, very strange. Very, very interesting. Although there are parallels with the Book of Enoch, we must ask whether the Book of Giants is a Jewish work. Certainly the discovery of the Aramaic version in the caves of Qumran points to the fact that the Essene community, a sect of Judaism, viewed that version as Jewish. The dates of the Aramaic manuscripts ruled out the possibility of it being a Christian composition. However, the text contains Babylonian mythic material. This would seem to suggest the Jews borrowed from a polytheistic myth and a type of cross-pollination of mythic tales. The story does place the borrowed ideas into the proper light for Jewish literature. The Babylonian mythic figures are cast in an evil light and staged as wicked giants. Some since have speculated that the Book of Giants was either part of or an expansion of the Book of Enoch, also called First Enoch. We will examine the Book of Giants alone and also within the text of the Book of Enoch. There is a strong connection with the Book of Enoch in a section called the Book of the Watchers, First Enoch 1-36. The reader is strongly advised to read Enoch, and especially that section, before reading the Book of Giants. The story will make much better sense if you do. Because of the need for this clarification, the Book of Enoch will be included in the volume. There have been many attempts to reconstruct the sequence and content of the Aramaic Book of Giants. There are instances where the various sequences of events are unclear. I generally follow Stuckenbrock's sequence of events, since the text is so fragmented and at times not fully comprehensible. It is best to first present an overall flow or meaning of the storyline. We will now explore the story presented in the Book of Enoch. Okay, so there's the Aramaic version. Okay, I gotta figure out which one I want to do here. There's the Aramaic. Manichaean. Okay, I'm going to read the Manichaean version of the Book of Giants. Fragments of and allusions to the Manichaean version of the Book of Giants have been recovered in medieval manuscripts in various languages, including Middle Persian, Sogdian, Uighur, Coptic, Parthian, and Latin. The following is a summary of the surviving fragments and allusions, which have been placed in a sequence which reveals a logical storyline. There could be other possible sequences of the fragmented verses. Some of the Manichaean versions adapted the story of the giants to fit Iranian mythology. Scarvo discusses these adaptations at length. Three of the most striking adjustments have to do with the names of major characters. Sam is the name of an immortal dragon slayer in later Iranian epic. His name is given to the giant Oya. Oya's brother Haya is given the name Nariman, who in Iranian epic is a figure closely connected to Sam. Either identified with him or presented as one of his close relatives. The name of the father of the giant Mahawe, the demon Virogdad, means given by lightning in Persian, a loose translation of Barak-el, which is Hebrew for lightning of God. The watcher Barak-el seems to be the father of Mahawe in the Aramaic version of the Book of Giants. Following is a synopsis of the storyline of the Manichaean version of the Book of Giants. The 200 demons descended to earth. The Watchers forsook their duties and descended to earth because of the beauty of the human women. Some thought they could resist the allure, but they could not. They began having sex with the women. The demons revealed forbidden arts and spiritual mysteries. Some shared their power to seduce the women. In doing these things, the Watchers brought ruin on the earth. The descent from their estate and revealing to humans their secrets of power angered the angels and God. Enoch warned that the coming of the 200 demons, Watchers, will lead only to hardened speech and hard labor. Watchers subjugated the human race, killing hundreds of thousands of the righteous in battle, forcibly marrying beautiful women, and enslaving the nations. The Watchers' veil, which seems to mean they hid themselves among humans to keep the angels sent from God from finding them. The righteous endured burning, and Enoch is mentioned. The Watcher Semizad begat two giant sons, Sam, Oya, and Patsam, Haya. The other demons and Yaksas begot the rest of the giants. These are the Nephilim. Versions of the Book of the Giants were influenced by local traditions. The names of Oya and Sam were introduced via myths pertaining to that Iranian hero. This explains the immortality of Sam. The name of the country of Aryana Vela, and the change of the mountain to Kamin Mountains, substituted for Mount Hermon, reflect changes due to influence by local myths, names, landscapes, and terrain. The giants grew up and brought destruction and ruin upon the earth and the human race. The lamentation of humanity reached up to heaven. The god Yima accepted the prayers and worship of mankind as they begged him for help. The giants boasted that Sam and his brother would live and rule forever because their power and strength were unequaled among men. This is a possible parallel to the Aramaic version of Gilgamesh. The giant Hobabus robbed another of his wife. The giants argued among themselves and began killing one another and other creatures. Sam and his brother were mentioned. Sam had a dream in which a tablet was thrown in water. The tablet contained 3 signs portending woe, battle, and destruction. Naaman had a dream about a garden full of trees in rows. He saw 200 trees. A list of proverbs was recited. Naaman reported that what he saw in the dream. In the dream, some were weeping and lamenting, and many others were sinful rulers. The giant Mahawe, son of Verogdad, Barak El, wanted to seek out Enoch. As he flew, he heard a voice as the sun began to rise, warning him. The heavenly voice told him that if he had flown too high, the sun would set his wings on fire. The voice told him he must descend. The voice guided him to Enoch, who hails him and meets him. This seems to be an adaptation of the Icarus myth. He lands and his voice leads him too. As he approached, Enoch hailed him. The dream was recounted to Enoch, who interpreted the dream, indicating that the trees represent the egregori, Greek for watchers, and the same as the Gregorgi. He also mentioned the giants who were born of women. The trees are pulled up. Mahawe was ordered not to run away, but to bring the message written on 2 stone tablets, showing it first to Nariman. He brought them to share the contents of one tablet with the giants. However, the content pertained to the demons. Samizad told him to read the writings to Enoch or have Enoch read it. Enoch delivered a message of judgment to the demons and their children, telling them that they will have no peace, that they will see the destruction of their children, the giants. He stated the giants ruled for 120 years. Enoch predicted an era of earthly fertility and birth after the flood. Sam exhorted the other giants to cheer up and eat, but they were too sorrowful to eat, and instead they fell asleep. Mahawe went to Atenbush, Utnapishtim, this is probably another name for Enoch, and told him everything. When Mahawe returned, Sam had a dream in which he ascended to heaven. He saw the water of the earth consumed with heat. A demon came out of the water. Some beings, the protected spirits, were invisible, but he saw the heavenly rulers. They were invisible, but he saw the heavenly rulers. Here the text is not clear. Samizad, and Mahawe had a conversation. Mahawe mentioned his father, Birogdad, Barak El. There are references to weapons and blessings on someone who witnessed something not intended for them to see, but he escaped with his life. Sam and Mahawe searched for something. Assurance was given to Mahawe that he will be protected from Sam, but nevertheless Sam and Mahawe argued and began to fight. Keep in mind these appear to be brothers. The wicked demons were glad to see the apostle Enoch. They gathered before him begging for mercy and promising to reform their ways. They hoped for him to intervene. Enoch warned the demons that they would be placed in fire and taken to face eternal damnation. The demons believed they would never lose their power, but they did not know their power would not matter. He also addressed their sinful, misbegotten sons, the giants, and described how the righteous will fly over a fire of damnation and gloat over the souls inside it. The demons took some heavenly helpers hostage. As a result, the angels descended from heaven, terrifying the 200 demons who took human form and hide among human beings. This was called veiling. Okay, let me read this again. The demons took some heavenly helpers hostage. As a result, the angels descended from heaven, terrifying the 200 demons who took human form and hid among human beings. This was called veiling. The angels separated out the human beings and posted a watch over them. The angels seized the giants from the demons and led them, the children of the giants, to safety in 32 distant towns prepared for them by the living spirit as Aryan Wazan, the traditional homeland of the Indo-Iranians, in the vicinity of the sacred mountain Simaru and other mountains. These people originated the arts and crafts. The 200 demons fought a massive and fiery battle with the 4 angels. 200 demons were the 200 watchers of fallen angels of the Aramaic version. Atenbush battled, accompanied by watchers and giants, and 3 of the giants were killed. An angel and other beings were also killed. Oya and Aya resolved to keep their promise to do battle, and they boasted their power and strength. God commanded 4 angels to bind the egregore with everlasting chains in a dark prison, and the angels annihilated their children. Even before the rebellion of the egregore, this prison had been built for them under the mountains. In addition, 36 towns had been prepared for the habitation of the wicked and long-lived sons of the giants before they were even born. Oya or Aya, the primordial monster Leviathan, and the archangel Raphael engaged in a great battle, and they vanished. Author's note: according to one tradition, Oya survived the flood and fought this battle after the flood. There is a myth of a watcher named Og surviving the flood. This attempts to answer the question as to where giants such as Goliath came from. According to the legend, Noah had mercy on Og, who was found clinging to the ark after the waters had risen and set the ark afloat. Og clung to the door of the ark until the waters receded. During the flood, Noah fed the giant. After the flood was over, Og went his own way. So that's where we find out how the giants survived afterwards. That's exactly what we wanted to know. How did the giants survive afterwards? Well, that just answers the question. In another legend, Og was so tall the waters only covered his feet. Another legend has him going to Palestine where there was no flood. That's interesting. The Jewish Encyclopedia states, biblical data, Amorite king of Bashan who reigned in Ashtaroth and was conquered by Moses and Israel in the Battle of Edrei. Numbers XXI 33. 60 fortified cities with high walls, gates, and bars comprising the region of Argob, being taken and given to the children of Machir, son of Manasseh. Deuteronomy 3:13. Joshua 8:31. Og was one of the giants of the remnant of the Rephaim. His iron bedstead in Rabbath, the capital of Ammon, is described as having been 9 cubits in length and 4 cubits in breadth. A rabbinical literature, Og was not destroyed at the time of the flood, for according to one legend, the waters reached only to his ankles. Another tradition states that he fled to Palestine where there was no flood. While according to a third legend, he sat on a rung of the ladder outside the ark, and after he had sworn to be a slave to Noah and his children, received his food each day through a hole made in the side of the ark. It was Og who brought the news to Abraham of the captivity of Lot. This he did, however, with an evil motive, for he thought that Abraham would seek to release Lot and would be killed in battle with the great kings, and that he, Og, would be able to marry the beautiful Sarah. A long lease of life was granted him as a reward for informing Abraham, but because of his sinister motive, he was destined to be killed by the descendants of Abraham. Og was present at the banquet which Abraham gave on the day Isaac was weaned. As Og had always declared that Abraham would beget no children, the guest teasingly asked him what he had to say now that Abraham had begotten Isaac, whereupon Og answered that Isaac was no true descendant since he could kill Isaac with one finger. It was in punishment for this remark, one legend declares, that he was condemned to live to see 100,000 descendants of Abraham and to be killed in battle against them. When Jacob went to Pharaoh and blessed him, Og was present, and the king said to him, "The grandson of Abraham, who according to thy words was to have no descendants, is now here with 70 of them." As Og cast an evil eye upon the children of Israel, God foretold that he would fall into their hands. The death of Og. During the battle of Edrei, Og sat on the city walls, his legs, which were 18 ells long, reaching down to the ground. Moses did not know what monster he had before him until God told him that it was Og. Og hurled an entire mountain against the Israelites, but Moses intercepted it. According to another legend, Og uprooted a mountain 3 miles long, intended to destroy all Israel at once by hurling it up through their camp, which was also 3 miles in length. But while he was carrying it upon his head, a swarm of locusts burrowed through it so that it fell around his neck. When he attempted to throw off his unwieldy necklace, long teeth grew from both sides of his mouth and kept the mountain in place. Thereupon Moses, who was himself 10 ells tall, took an axe of equal length, jumped upward 10 ells so that he could reach Og's ankles, and thus killed him. Shabbat and Yerubin also indicate that Og was regarded as an unusually large giant. A legend says that a grave digger pursued a stag 3 miles inside of one of Og's bones without reaching the other end. The Manichaean version states that 3,218 years passed between the time of Enoch and the time of King Vishtasp, who ruled at the time of the proper Zoroaster, who, along with Buddha and Christ, was an apostle who came before the final apostle Mani. This draws a connection from Enoch to the great prophets and then to Mani and places Mani on their same spiritual level. I'm not going to read the let me see. I'm not going to read all that. Okay, I'm going to stop here. That's good. Ooh. Have a good day, y'all. I'll read more later.